now live, by the way, just to let everyone know. And I'm going to do a very quick tweet to say hi and let everyone know that we're up and running, and also got the Q&A up and running as well. So yeah, by all means, jump in on that. But we're a couple of minutes out
together.
If you, yeah. Something that somebody did want me to cover this week is the changes to Patreon, which is
yes.
Oh, okay. Alyssa wants to talk about that, but
well, at some point
somebody was trying to explain it to me. Right?
That's what I'm talking with. Yeah.
Right, just because we're in the pre-show, it seems as though that what they're trying to do is eliminate the smaller creatives. So, and keep it refined to the larger, more profitable creatives. So that's we'll see how it actually materializes. But we'll talk about that at a later date when the show isn't quite so packed.
Yeah. I actually want to know, because we have been joined by Bianca. I want to know how the hell she did it, because we've been.
I think I was clicking on the wrong link, so I think I said I'm not techie, and I've used this once before with my coworkers, but it was on my desktop instead of my iPhone, so it was looking a little bit different, but I'm here now.
Well, you see, that's the thing. Everyone uses Hangouts once and then never use it again.
Yeah.
That's the reason why Google stopped using it. Then again, it's a bit like Google Plus. Everyone used that once and then stopped using it. Which was a shame, because it was so much better and more powerful than... Okay, I'm not even going to get into that, because then I get into a full rant mode. And look at the face on Alyssa, for goodness sake. She's sighing at me, for God's sake. Okay, fair enough.
Don't do it.
I liked Google Plus. Shush you. Right, okay. I'll also get myself some headphones as well. Welcome along. It is the 10th of December. It's been an interesting week. Welcome along to Talkin Comic-Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. My name is Leonard Sultana. It's been a fun one, and it's going to be reflected by the show. It's going to be a bit of a packed show. Lots of stuff to talk about. In other words, if you are watching on YouTube, by all means, jump in on the Q&A. Anything that you want to talk about, do let us know, especially if you took part in yesterday's open online badge registration. If there's any stories that you have to share, perhaps you had any technical issues. It seemed like a relatively smooth badge sale, but there were one or two people that were reporting problems. So we will get into that. Why is Alyssa laughing at me?
I've got a unique one, but we'll get to that later on. How about that for a teaser?
There you go. And also, we've got plenty of guests. We're hopefully getting a live report from... Hang on, but just turn that off. Yes, we're hopefully going to be getting a live report from Ace Universe, or Ace Comic-Con, as it's known, which is the debut show from the previous organizers of Wizard World. It was the original team, or the original brothers behind that organization, who have now started Ace Universe. About that, hopefully having a live report. I've been hearing all sorts of stuff and nonsense on the social media, certainly when it comes to VIP, but we'll get into that as we go. We are going to start, however, with a very interesting topic that we've been covering on the show for a couple of weeks and a couple of months now, and it has so much more ramification than we thought, especially with the result of the legal case. This is between San Diego Comic-Con and Salt Lake Comic-Con, which went to court this week. We have two guests joining us to talk about this that today. First things first, let's bring in my partner in crime. We've got Alyssa Franks from the Friends of Comic-Con Forum. Hello, Alyssa. How are you?
I am well. It's, as you've said, it is a busy week. Ace Last Jedi, Ace Comic-Con in Long Island, Open Reg, which quickly turns right into Hotel Apocalypse on the forum. It's just, it doesn't even skip a beat. And plus, we've opened up a private area on the forum for bloggers, which has been taking a lot of my attention to. Angela Copley. Angela has been doing quite a bit of work on that. So we've been trying to get bloggers together. How has your week been, Leonard?
I work as a DJ, so I've had no sleep, and I am now well and truly sick of Christmas songs. If I mean, I understand the joyful nature of Wonderful Christmas Time by Paul McCartney, but quite frankly, the man can buy the Orkney Islands with the proceeds he made from that record, and I want to throttle him by the neck. So anyway, but that's all beside the point. My week's been keeping a close eye on the topics that we're going to be talking about today. Let's introduce our two special guests. We have ourselves Rob Salkowitz. Hello, Rob. How are you, sir?
Hey, good to be with you again.
It's a pleasure always to have you on, and because you always have the best perspective on this and other con-related, the nuts and bolts of the con industry. So it's a pleasure to have you joining us. And we also have, for the first time on Talkin Comic-Con, a cup of tea with Englishman in San Diego, we have Bianca. Hello, Bianca Bruno. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I think first things first, then if you introduce yourself, let us know a little bit about yourself.
Sure, I'm a reporter in San Diego. I work for a website called Courthouse News, where we report on everything legal across the country. We're in pretty much every court in every major city. And as you know, and I'm sure as your followers know, the past couple of weeks have been sort of an interesting legal battle in San Diego's federal court involving Comic-Con and their trademark.
Well, I mean, I like the way you put it's been interesting. That seems like such an understatement from what we've been hearing in the reports, certainly from your own Twitter feed and your own reports, and also from Rob's pieces and from Bleeding Cool pieces as well. It seemed at first when the court case went to court that the team behind Salt Lake Comic-Con, Brandenburg, and his name escapes me straight off the bat.
Well, it would be Michael Katz as their attorney, but the two folks from Salt Lake City would be Dan Farr and Brian Brandenburg.
Yeah, they seemed very bullish coming up to this court case. We were kind of talking about this briefly before we really went on air, that they did have a lot of confidence, obviously boosted by their social media galvanization of their fans. Mm-hmm. How was the atmosphere in the court when it actually got down to putting it towards a judge?
Well, it was interesting because there actually weren't too many reporters in the courtroom besides myself and another reporter who flew down this week from Salt Lake City. You know, civil cases kind of get a bad rap in the legal community for being boring, but I find that the attorneys get sort of the most boisterous and heated among each other and sort of comments with each other. You know, San Diego Comic-Con is really firm that Salt Lake was basically trying to ride their coattails and, you know, basically build their own success off of what San Diego spent 45 years doing. So there was a lot of sort of back and forth between the attorneys that way. You couldn't really tell what the jury was feeling, though, throughout the case.
Was there, I mean, certainly the way it was put forward to people following the case, it was the David versus Goliath case.
Sure.
And certainly something that Salt Lake played up was the fact that there's this monolith called San Diego Comic-Con with their very expensive legal team. And I just got this, I don't think this is ever going to make a movie of the week, but I get this feeling that there was this kind of the very Hollywood lawyer against kind of the Jimmy Stewart kind of guy who comes in and is going to try and take down Goliath. When it actually got down to the nuts and bolts, though, and with all the sort of the emails that were brought out, mm-hmm. what was the tone? Certainly, because it sounded from the pieces that I've been reading that it got very boisterous on occasion.
Well, So the emails you're referencing are some emails between Salt Lake's co-founders Brian Vandenberg and Dan Farr, where basically they talked about hijacking the Comic-Con brand. And I'm sure personally they regret sending those emails amongst each other, since they were so much the focus of this case in San Diego Comic-Con, making the case that they did infringe their trademark intentionally, that it was malicious, that they were trying to basically steal what San Diego Comic-Con had built up over 40 years. And interestingly, San Diego, during their opening arguments a couple weeks ago, really tried to downplay the fact that they are Goliath now, that they are the best and sort of most revered Comic-Con, you know, of all the events across the country. They really tried to focus on the fact that they were built up from volunteers, that they were really scrappy for most of their history. Only until recently did they really get sort of the following that they have now. So maybe that did work on the jury, since they did find in favor of San Diego.
Very quickly with that emails, I just wanted to clarify with that, because I didn't know that they were emails between Farr and Brandenburg. How were they released as public by CCI? How did that work?
They came out during trial, so those were shown to the jury during evidence. I'm not quite sure if they are publicly available online. It's my understanding they aren't, and I think during the sort of post-trial motions after the verdict was read Friday, attorneys did sort of Salt Lake Comic-Con did request for some of those documents to go public, and obviously San Diego does not want that to happen, even though the public's kind of aware now about what they contained. So that will be discussed in coming months, as you know, the case isn't totally wrapped up yet.
Sorry, yeah, Rob, you were about to say.
Yeah, the emails between Farr and Brandenburg were disclosed in the pretrial summary judgment motion by San Diego Comic-Con. I found that on the website. So so in their discovery documents, they put forth a lot of stuff, including the public quotes from Brandenburg talking about, he gave an interview to the Salt Lake City media about what they were up to with the convention that was admitted and stuff like that. So a lot of that stuff is out there if you know where to look for it. I'm kind of curious if the trial transcripts are going to be available somewhere, because I was relying a lot on your coverage during the case.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks, but I believe the court has started filing some of the transcripts. I don't know that they're in their final form. You know, usually the court reporter has to go through and edit and, you know, correct typos and things like that. But they should be publicly available for the court through the court's website. So people interested in the case can look those up that way.
Those
one piece of information that I got out of
reading those.
Yeah, one piece of information that I got sort of reported to me by somebody in the courtroom is that it was disclosed that Farr and Brandenburg had voted themselves bonus to drain some cash out of the organization prior to that. Was that mentioned in the court? Was that mentioned from the bench? How did that come up? Because I kind of reported it based on what I heard.
That was mentioned at least during closing arguments. It could have been mentioned during testimony, probably when Mr. Farr testified earlier in the week. I only saw part of that. So they had all of the financial statements and documents from Salt Lake City, and were asking the two co-owners questions during when they were testifying in court, and that would have likely come up then. But it was something that San Diego's attorney mentioned during her closing arguments on Thursday.
I think I better clarify, just for people watching, the reason why that's relevant is because Salt Lake Comic-Con did start a crowdfunding attempt to try and raise money for the court case. And obviously this revelation that they had done this was seeming to be incredibly underhand. That's something else that also came up as well, and the judge made a very strong pointed mention about this, about the communication with Salt Lake's fans. I mean, when did that really start to become a talking point in the case?
I think it has been a talking point for most of the year, and certainly this summer leading up to trial. I did cover a sanction hearing, I believe it was in August, where San Diego was asking for the judge to basically tell Salt Lake to shut up and stop talking about the case publicly. You know, they were sort of infamously posting things online. They had a whole section on their Salt Lake Comic-Con website dedicated to the case, where they posted legal documents. They had multiple press conferences and press releases. They talked about it on social media, on Twitter. And the judge did find earlier this year that they needed to tone it down, that there was a potential to taint or pollute the jury pool, which is a big concern for all attorneys across the country. But Salt Lake didn't accept that and appealed that decision to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in California. And they actually found that the San Diego judge was infringing on their First Amendment rights to free speech. And so, you know, I don't know that it was really impactful on the case, since that all sort of happened, you know, in the weeks leading up to the case. But they sort of got their way in that way, and that they were allowed to say whatever they wanted, basically.
We've got a question coming in on. We've got a question coming in on the Q&A. Andrew Dickinson's asking, wasn't contempt of court mentioned?
It was, and they could have, because the judge had previously told them that they needed to have a disclosure on their website saying that they were ordered not to discuss the case. And San Diego said that they weren't displaying that according to those rules from the court. They weren't sort of following what the judge had ordered them to do. So this, you know, was sort of an ongoing issue leading up to the trial the last couple weeks.
This was really a curious tactic on their part, because I just don't know what they were trying to accomplish with this, other than, you know, create this poisonous atmosphere between the Salt Lake City fans and the San Diego fans, and something I mean, they were largely successful. They really, their social media campaign was coordinated, strategic, and deliberate. And they were actually, there's a private Facebook group where they're actually marshaling their supporters and directing them on comment threads and stuff like that. And to what end? Because it was really a jury case, and what the public at large perceived about this. So now, you know, in the point of view of the legal people that I was following and getting the guidance from, is that what was at issue with the trademark was fairly straightforward. And a lot of the evidence that Salt Lake City was trying to bring into this was not germane to the case. It was, you know, not legally relevant. And so they're getting a lot of the sort of the lay public that's not up on the issues, you know, rallying around these arguments that weren't ever going to fly in court. Then they have their day in court. They present the arguments. The judge disallows 4 out of 5 of their primary strategies for going after this, and, you know, repeatedly sustains objections to stuff that they're trying to bring in. And now they have to explain it to their fans about why they lost. And this social media following that they've mobilized is, you know, if you follow the comments because I posted my piece from Forbes on Rate at Comic-Con, and that comment thread is really toxic right now. There's lots and lots of people.
Really?
How could they do this? And they need to appeal, and this is preposterous, and the judge is biased. And it's like they've been fed a lot of information that was never going to hold up in court. Part really kept their mouths shut and let their lawyers do the talking, and that's, you know, that's how you have to do it in the court. I don't blame the judge for being a little hacked off about that.
Certainly something that has been mentioned on a number of pieces, including the Bleeding Cool pieces that I've read, is the word smoking gun. Which what would you say were the key, so like the moments when it just didn't go Salt Lake's way?
Well, certainly those emails where they repeatedly talked about hijacking the Comic-Con brand was the smoking gun. But I would say even more so, and I'm sure this bolstered San Diego's case, and the attorneys certainly jumped on it during her closing arguments, was when Mr. Brandenburg testified on Wednesday. He admitted that Comic-Con is a brand. And really, that's, as San Diego's attorney said during her closing arguments on Thursday, that's case closed. He knew it was a brand. If it's a brand, that means that they have a right to it. They have a trademark to their brand. It's recognizable by the community. And I would say also another point that probably won the jurors over was a study commissioned by San Diego, which showed that San Diego's event had a very strong brand recognition, where the words Comic-Con were seen as a brand by over 80% of consumers. And that was a brand recognition rate right behind Coca-Cola. So
I was curious about that. Sorry to interrupt, because that was something I was curious about, because they said the line Comic-Con is a brand, but in the survey it was Comic-Con. Was that distinction made when it came to the survey? what was that element of it?
The hyphen was a big sort of debate during the case and leading up to the case. And it's certainly something that Salt Lake argued, was that and there were emails where they actually said, we can't use a hyphen because that's trademarked by San Diego. But they believed the words comic space con without a hyphen were basically fair game. That's how all the other events across the country are advertising themselves, as Comic Cons, but not San Diego Comic-Con International, or not Comic-Con with a hyphen. But when it comes to trademark law, San Diego owns Comic-Con without a hyphen. And even if they didn't, the hyphen doesn't really matter when it comes to trademark. It's basically if you're infringing the name, if you're using it without permission. And since it's pronounced the same way with or without a hyphen, they own that.
And that's what this case was really about. I mean, all of the stuff that was going on with Salt Lake City and their deliberate intents to infringe, I mean, that was aggravating. That was making that was motivating, I think, in a large part, Comic-Con International's, aggressiveness in pursuing this. They didn't like how they were conducting themselves. But fundamentally, this was a case about who owns that trademark of Comic-Con. And the case resolved it that San Diego owns Comic-Con. Interestingly, the jury, because they awarded such little damages, they really found that in their findings that the infringement wasn't deliberate. And Salt Lake City is making a big deal that they were found not guilty, which I don't think is quite the right way to put it in a civil case. But they were found to be not deliberately infringing, which is fine, because that means that they don't owe $20 million or $12 million in damages or whatever was being asked for. They got off with $20,000. But at the end of the day, the trademark belongs to San Diego Comic-Con, and that means that the other events, not just Salt Lake City, but everybody else in the country that's calling themselves Comic-Con, is now they are now put on notice that if they thought there was any ambiguity around that, there isn't anymore. So there's statutory damages to be found in the case of anybody that's deliberately infringing. And now the court has ruled, and it's like, if you don't know that, then that's your problem. It's not up in the air anymore. It's settled.
Is Salt Lake Comic-Con liable for statutory damages?
Well, they were found to have needed to pay $20,000 for a corrective advertising campaign. They were not, none of their profits, which was found to be over $2 million over the past few years they've been operating, after, operating costs and staffing costs, none of their profits were awarded. And $20,000 versus $12 million that San Diego was asking for is kind of a slap in the face to San Diego in a way. But, you know, it helps their case in pursuing other Comic Cons, which is really what everyone's worried about, is sort of the legal precedent that this sets. You know, it's my understanding there are a few Comic Cons that do have a license from San Diego, including the one in Palm Springs. I'm not sure quite how many there are. And so I imagine either San Diego Comic-Con will send out letters to all the other ones and say, you know, you need to pay for a license. You know, maybe they could even up their price for their license, seen as their trademark has value, or,
So,
you know, they're going to be pursuing more court cases.
So the statutory damages is just going forward then. It's not to this, it's not relevant to this case. That's correct?
That's a good, I'm kind of curious about that myself, but I mean, it's much more of a relevant matter to upcoming, like Ace Comic-Con, which you're going to be discussing later. To me, like, these guys started their company earlier this year while this litigation was pending, chose to brand their event Comic-Con, and then proceeded to stage what sounds to me like kind of a dumpster fire. This is exactly the kind of situation that this trademark was intended to prevent, is that San Diego does not want to take the blame for unaffiliated events that call themselves Comic-Con, staging events that aren't in the fans' interest, that don't meet their standards for fan experience, and then having it blame, you know, having people think, oh God, they put on such a good show in San Diego, why was this such a crap fest in Long Island? Well, obviously it's a different event, it's with different organizers.
Yeah.
But why the Sheamus brothers put the gun in their mouth on this one with this court case coming down the day their event opened is insane. So there's other events that have long been branded Comic-Cons that have other issues to face, but the ones that opened this year while this train was heading down the tracks is very, very peculiar.
Yeah.
Well,
So
and I imagine, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I imagine they'd go after sort of the bigger Comic Cons like New York Comic Con, Chicago Comic Con, because really, in a way, they were getting at that these other people are competing with them for fans. I don't believe that that's the case. I don't think people in the Comic Con community believe that's the case. You know, these smaller Comic Cons are much different than the one in San Diego. And that was something that they brought up during trial, that Salt Lake brought up. You know, they kept saying they were DIY, they're homemade. They kind of did it to appeal to the Salt Lake community specifically, not to bring in fans from outside the area. You know, it's a totally different ball game than the event in San Diego. And in a way, well, I think that's go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's very disingenuous of them, because these guys are businessmen, they're entrepreneurs. They come from the software industry, where they should be aware of intellectual property law in general and why that's important. And San Diego is a nonprofit event. They don't have a board of directors that are forcing them to maximize profit. They're not looking to get the last dollar out of their event, clearly based on how they've resisted expanding and doing some other things that might have been more in that vein. The Salt Lake City guys, out of one side of their mouth, are saying we have the third largest event in the United States based on attendance, which is suspect in my opinion based on how they count their attendees and based on what I've heard from the show. But and then on the other hand, saying that they're this like little mom and pop. Well, you know, which is it? Are they aspiring to play in that league and put all that money, you know, putting millions of dollars in their pockets and the pockets of their investors? You know, it seems very peculiar that these guys who are a commercial concern are the ones turning around and calling Comic-Con, which is a mission-driven nonprofit, the greedy corporate people.
Yeah, I think I get what you're doing with that.
Part of their messaging has always been dubious to me.
Plus, it's evidenced by how they've awarded 3 trademarks to 3 different conventions: Palm Springs, the New Jersey Expo, and Rose City Con. It's my understanding that I don't think that all they've asked for, at least I know from the Palm Springs Con, all they've asked for is that you adhere to the mission statement, that you're, you know, that you promote comics. It hasn't been it doesn't seem to me, and it doesn't feel to me, that it's going to be a money grab. Now, the negotiations may be a little bit different when you're talking about repot. Yeah, that's the big
Stay tuned.
elephant.
I have a piece in ICV2 on Monday that's going to look at that. I'm hoping to be able to get some answers on that particular point.
That would be
the other
great.
big company, license, by the way, they have a license agreement with
Yeah.
San Diego.
Something I wanted to, we're talking about the ramifications of all of this then. I mean, certainly the monies that San Diego were asking for in this particular case, that didn't obviously occur. It seemed more that was put more on the table by Comic-Con, San Diego's lawyers, purely because of the underhand way that Salt Lake had conducted themselves. And it was almost kind of, okay, we're going to slap you down for this. But then you've got the actual the award that has been made. So now it's more a matter of principle. And now we've obviously heard about these 140 other conventions. Do you think this is going to open up the floodgates for the San Diego legal team moving forward?
Absolutely.
I think anybody,
you know, and the attorney basically said as much during her closing arguments. She said, we are going after the worst infringers first, and that they believe Salt Lake is the worst infringers. Saying the worst first suggests that there are other ones who are, you know, slightly below that, that they're sort of, they've got their eyes on now. She also said that, you know, San Diego wants to, they want to basically uphold their name. So there's no reason for them not to go after anyone else. They've got a jury verdict in their favor. They've got their trademarks, which based on trademark law are incontestable because no one raised any issues with them for 5 years. So that basically sets the trademark in stone that they're the owner of it. You know, they've got a lot stacked up, you know, in their favor that really is going to be hard for someone to challenge now legally, especially if they're a smaller show and they don't have a lot of money to pay for a legal team to fight any trademark battles against San Diego Comic-Con.
yeah, and I don't think it's their intention, based on my conversations behind the scenes with some people. I don't think it's their intention to be predatory about it. But I do think that anybody that lined themselves up with Salt Lake City in this case is probably going to be receiving some Christmas cards from the San Diego legal team in coming days. I have a question for Bianca, though, regarding the damages. I understood that in some point in the San Diego, or in the Salt Lake City defense, their legal counsel raised this issue that a judgment above a certain point would basically bankrupt the organization.
Yeah.
And that it is possible that the jury disregarded evidence of willful infringement in order to not be obliged to award those kind of damages because they didn't want to put the organization out of business, and that the findings of the jury was essentially a compromise to say, you know, look, we believe San Diego is right about this, but we don't think it's worth a death sentence to Salt Lake City Con, so we're going to fine for a lesser degree of infringement so that we don't have to make them disgorge, you know, millions of dollars. So number one, Bianca, was that the case? Did they say that in court?
That did come up in court. However, that evidence that argument wasn't permissible. So the judge immediately said, you know, the jury needs to disregard that. You can't basically appeal to someone's emotions in deciding a judgment. But it was said, so whether or not they can. Oh, go ahead. Whether or not it was considered, I don't know. I wasn't in the jury room.
So we'll go with Rob first.
Yeah, my understanding is that the San Diego legal team did not object to that, even though it was objectionable, and consequently, if it goes to appeal, they're not going to get a revision on the damages because they didn't object at the time that they did. But if the judge actually from the bench said it was impermissible, then that to me would make it very, very risky for Salt Lake City to try and appeal this, because then it is possible the appeals court could look at it and say, we affirm the judgment, but we think that the jury was wrong on the damages or something like that, and they could expose themselves to a much greater penalty. Like that they dodged a bullet in this case, and they might want to just count their blessings and go home.
Sure, and Salt Lake's attorney had previously said that they would appeal if they lost. When I talked to him Friday after the verdict, he didn't say as much. You know, there's still a few post-trial motions that they have to go through. There's an injunction hearing by San Diego that will be heard in coming months. It's not totally resolved, but now they're not saying immediately that they are going to appeal. I'm not sure what Comic-Con Salt Lake's founders have said. I know they gave a statement, I think, after I had turned in my story on Friday, but you know, they might be kind of weighing the pros and cons of appealing at this point.
Was it more a case of the strength of the argument that had been put forward, that it did seem so, when it came to the settlement and to the agreement by the determination of the court, that it's almost like Salt Lake has kind of, while like we said that they went in rather bullish, rather a little bit more restrained and more a little bit more humble, perhaps.
Sure.
Well, they're claiming victory on. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you can comment. That's okay.
I said, you know, that I think it's worth reading Brandenburg's statement in full at some point. It was on Facebook, and it was very interesting. And they're basically claiming victory over the fact that they were not found, in his words, found guilty, which again is kind of a weird formulation for a civil case. But they were not found guilty of intentionally infringing on the case. That basically they were right about everything except for the trademark, which was the main issue. They apologized for running the car through the streets of San Diego.
Yeah.
To promote their event. They actually said that in hindsight they wouldn't have done that, which probably would have been a good move on their part. And you know, because that's what really provoked the ire of San Diego in the first place and brought all of this down on them. But I think they're trying to climb down from the position, because a lot of their fans, if you look at the comment threads on Facebook and stuff like that, it's like they need to appeal this. This was crazy. Like this judge was out of their mind. And you know, I think that a lot of the fans that are for that think that when you appeal, you're re-arguing the facts, which isn't the case. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's a good idea for them to appeal as a strategy.
A lot of the feedback that I'm getting is from lay people who don't understand the situation, and what they're saying to me is the term Comic-Con is so ubiquitous. It's so known over the entire culture that how can you trademark that one term? And they haven't, and CCI hasn't defended the trademark up to this point, even though they've had the trademark for a long time, that it's become a normal colloquialism, a normal word to use to indicate a pop culture event. Now, I can understand San Diego's point of view in wanting to differentiate comic conventions from fan expos. I think that's brilliant, and I love it. But how do you combat, trying to educate all of these people about what Comic-Con is now using, the term? And I think that's the problem that Comic-Con CCI Comic-Con International now faces, is that they've got to bring this level of understanding to everybody across the country about what a Comic-Con is, as opposed to a fan expo.
Well, as you know, these guys traditionally, Comic-Con has been reticent. They find it distasteful to talk about this. They let their event do the talking and things. They may need to get over their distaste a little bit to get a little more aggressive about that. I totally agree, Alyssa.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting as well. As I've got Brian Brandenburg's post up here. This is the "I woke up this morning facing a bright new future" post, and 5 or 6 paragraphs down, it says, "We own the trademark for FanX. There are over 140 Comic-Cons and 1 FanX." They could have nipped this in the bud. They could have stopped this ages ago, and it was almost a case out of principle.
No. It was a case of them wanting publicity.
You think? It's a
yeah,
very
that's
putting a lot of chips onto the table for that.
And interestingly, the people with most to lose, the dog that didn't bark here, is ReedPop, and why they chose not to be party to this, when they have a much more defensible, in my opinion, they have a much more defensible position regarding New York Comic-Con, which existed. There was an event called New York Comic-Con that predates San Diego.
Sure.
And they don't have they didn't shoot their mouths off on email, as far as I know, about what their intentions were with using the word Comic-Con in their branding. They were not as soft a target as Salt Lake City. They're the ones with the most to lose now that this ruling has come down, but they were completely quiet about this whole thing. So we'll see. I
think they've been very much interested in to see how the result of the court case. I mean, I've sent an email off to New York Comic-Con. I can almost imagine the email will probably be better received from yourself, Rob. I know my place.
Stay tuned. I will say Karen Sessions, one of our watchers has said, I don't think CCI has to get over anything. Open Reg proved that.
A very good point.
Well, if not for this boycott, it would have sold out in 23 seconds instead of 30. So I guess they may have had some impact. Very
much so. Excellent stuff. I think that it's now a case, like you say, there's so many other factors, and the ramifications I think are going to be felt down the line on this. Certainly in case of you may see some events changing their names very quickly. You may also see more licenses being put out. In that case, we may even see a number of conventions raising their game to match the standards that are being requested of them by San Diego Comic-Con. And like we say, we also have ReedPop and New York Comic-Con to go into the whole debate. I mean, we're also talking Emerald City Comic-Con as well. The other events that they use using the name. I think there's going to be so much more to this beyond the this first case. For that, I'd like to say thank you very much indeed for Rob and for Bianca for joining us, and for joining us on the ride for this, because like I said, we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. And like I say, the ride's not yet over yet, but we've certainly reached a major milestone in it. So thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Thank Bianca.
Excellent stuff.
Yep, always a pleasure. And I'll be writing. I wrote about this in Forbes. I'll be writing more about it in ICB2 probably tomorrow or Tuesday. So if you're interested, follow along.
Definitely. I'll retweet those. Are you doing any follow-up pieces, Bianca?
Well, we'll see what comes forward. Like I said, there are some post-trial motions that will be argued. The judge asked both sides to file their documents within, I believe, 30 days. So there will likely be another hearing, and I will attend that and have a report.
Where's the best place for people to follow you online and follow your writing?
They can follow my Twitter. It's at Bianca D. Bruno, Bruno. And my stories are posted on courthousenews.com.
Excellent stuff. And for yourself, Rob, where can people best follow you online?
At Rob Salk on Twitter is probably the best. And then when I post new stuff on Forbes or ICB2 or Publishers Weekly or any of the other places I write, I usually tweet those out there. So that's a good place to start.
Excellent stuff. Right. So thank you very much indeed for joining us. And yeah, we'll certainly keep an eye on the developments of the story as they move forward. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Very good.
Excellent. Take care. Oh yeah, and Merry Christmas. Sorry. I knew there was something I wanted to say. Merry Christmas to you. Good grief.
I do quickly want to say thank you to everybody on the live chat who's shouted out and made comments. I'm sorry that we didn't get to reading off the questions for everybody. It's a matter of time constraints. There was a lot of topic, a lot of subject to cover. And so we didn't quite get to everything. The question by Michael P., which I would have loved to have gotten answered, was
let's discuss now. I mean, certainly, there was a question that was put forward by Sarita P. Does it only affect cons in the US? What about worldwide? I wasn't too sure what the legal standing on an international level of the trademark, because what the statement has been is that Comic-Con will now be making obviously these approaches to these 140 Comic-Cons in North America. So obviously the trademark does stand as an American trademark. Not too sure how it stands as an international one. That's the reason why I didn't bring that up. Let's have a look. There was, a couple of comments from Andrew Dickinson, certainly in terms of the legal standing. Is it a little bit like Hoover now? With Comic-Con becoming that ubiquitous. Hoover did lose a similar case, or was it the copyright application? As far as I remember, it was just the copyright application, but they still had a legal battle about 10 years afterwards when someone actually tried to use Hoover in the marketing, and it was actually held up because it had been felt that Hoover was now more of a ubiquitous statement. So it's now seeing how Comic-Con will be agreed on as a brand, but that was determined in court. That was the whole point, that it is now a recognized brand. Into the Blue, Mr. Oh, no, you go for it.
Yeah, and Michael P. said was asking whether or not it's the first usage or the trademark. When was the trademark recorded? I believe it's when the trademark is recorded. It's not the first usage, because New York, there were Comic-Cons prior to San Diego, but San Diego has the registered trademark. So I think, we can, I'm going to make a copy of all of this and maybe try and send an email over to Rob, and maybe he can address some of these questions for us.
I think also sending it off to David Glanzer as well, I think would be bring that up. Because it's like we say, San Diego Comic-Con was not always San Diego Comic-Con. It was the Golden State Comic Book Convention. It was the San Diego Comic Book Convention. There's a history which people have to kind of work on. So also people were asking how long the trademark has been in place. 5 years. That's how long that was submitted. Just to let you know on that one.
I also really have gotten the feeling that this is about what a comic book convention means, as opposed to trying to go after, if a corporation owned the trademark of Comic-Con, I could see them pursuing it for monetary gains. Since this is a nonprofit that owns this trademark, I really think that it is geared towards making sure that it's true to the name of Comic-Con.
Yeah.
So we don't get confused with Fan Expos. This has been a long-term listeners will know that this has been a long-term conversation that Leonard and I have had over the years about the different types of conventions out there, and it's nice to see that it's actually being brought into the big thing. So are we getting our live report?
I have sent a message out to Paul. At this point, however, I know that he's running around and getting all sorts of interviews. If you do follow him on _DC World, he interviewed Mark Guggenheim this morning. So he's particularly busy, as you can understand. Right. But we've sent out a message and we'll see how it go. But I think we can certainly cover something else that happened this week. How's that?
Yes, let me start with one quick thing, and we'll go with the dry stuff first. The San Diego Convention Center released its annual report. This is by way of segueing into the big event that occurs in San Diego in July. They estimate the Comic-Con's economic impact to be $143 million, including $300 million in hotel sales.
So, you know, when we keep talking about that the hotels are the big thing when it comes to San Diego and San Diego being the host of Comic-Con, when we say that the hotels are the big thing, we bloody mean it. My God, the amount of money involved.
The rest of the money, $140 million to taking hotel sales out of that, must be going towards transportation, food, other things that are happening and occurring in San Diego. So it's not just for the convention center; it's for the entire town. They did add that charging stations will likely be installed in the convention center next year. Yay! So
yeah. I'm sorry. They tweeted about this about a month ago, and they turned around and said, "Oh yes, we've installed charging stations." I saw 3 in a bay by an entrance, and I just thought, there's going to be a lot more people than that. Ridiculous. Who knows? Quite frankly, I just want them to ramp up their Wi-Fi coverage in the building. That's, you know.
Wi-Fi for that many
There you go,
people.
Michael. Please just agree with me. Wi-Fi.
Yes.
Come on.
Well, I'd be happy with good cell coverage. You know, just
yeah.
I'll pay for it. I don't care. You know, I use it. I'm a heavy user. So yesterday.
What happened yesterday then?
I don't know. What, you know, was an uneventful badge sale.
Right. Was it?
Well,
because the reason why the issues that we saw, or the issues that I managed to see very quickly, to explain, I didn't actually take part in the badge sale this time round. 2 reasons. Number one, I was DJing at a Christmas party, and I was setting up while the actual badge sale was happening. So I was completely busy. I had no chance. And number 2, I'm completely and utterly skint because I haven't been paid for Christmas gigs yet. That's in January. So I had no money. So I'm relying on the press badge. Yes, I kind of have shot myself in the foot on that one, but who knows? We'll see what happens. But either that, or I will be covering San Diego Comic-Con from a bar outside. I don't see a bad problem with that, but we'll see.
I'll join you.
Yes, I'll be outside in a bar and retweeting stuff and getting drunk. That'll be the level of my coverage next year, but who knows? But the issues that I spotted, it was all leading up to the waiting room opening. Beyond that, it was stuff like member ID crashing, people not being able to open up their member ID pages so they could get their registration codes if they had not received their email or something.
If they didn't listen to me beforehand.
Okay, Mum.
Sorry, I just had to say that, because how many times have we told people, write it down someplace on your local machine? You know, you've got to do that. Go ahead. Sorry, I had to interrupt.
No, you're absolutely right. And also the issues with browsers collapsing, freezing. I saw a number of people reporting that. Admittedly, yeah, we are talking a very small percentage of people. It was just it was a case of just diving in and getting involved. As always, as we've discovered, badge teams and coordinating your efforts were the best way to secure badges. I saw a number of people stating that they were working alone, that they struggled to do what they needed to do. But badge teams did particularly well. I know that the UK attendees efforts, their badge teams did incredibly well. What was the forums like?
It was good. Usually you've got 1 or 2 of, I believe we've got I want to say at least a half dozen groups of 30 to 50 people in each group. Usually one group does better than other groups. And for some reason, the group that I was in did not do well in pre-reg, but we did very well in open reg. So we were able to purchase for a lot of our other groups. That's what makes our group, the forum grouping, so different, is that we can see what each group is doing. So we can cross by. So we, in general, did very well, to the point where by the time it got to Thursday and Sunday badges, we were just telling all of our members to close out your buying session. Nobody in our group wants any. And we didn't recommend that they go out into the wild and purchase for people out in the wild, because it's a trust issue. You know, it really is a trust issue. And I think CCI was right in bringing up the fact of, if one person sells the badge, then all three of the badges are canceled. So the one issue that we had, which was unique, was that somebody typed in one of our badge buying groups, somebody typed in, they didn't copy and paste, they typed in the wrong member ID. So consequently, they ended up buying a badge for a complete stranger.
Oh my word.
Yes.
Oh my word.
Oh yes, and this is completely their fault. They know this. We've sent an email off to CCI. I have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, so yeah, some complete stranger out there is going, wow, I got a badge for Comic-Con.
How on earth was that even possible?
Well, it is. It is possible, but you know, use copy paste. Okay, that's going in my list of copy it down, copy your codes down on your local machine and use copy paste. One thing I never thought that I would have to say. So, but that was the only problems that we encountered. Did you encounter any other ones, Leonard?
I'm doing my best to kind of search for any major issues. And like I say, it was literally just the one or two talking about. It was all leading up to the waiting room. The second the waiting room opened, it went smoothly. Do you have a timetable of when the badge is sold?
I do have a timetable. What I recall, what I was particularly watching when they started letting people in, and it seemed as though it seemed as though they didn't start letting people in until about 8 or 10 past, which is pretty normal. Yeah, and they started letting people in slowly, and then they increased in terms of the you know, they sped up as the normal thing. I am going to read Andy says from the Marvel Report, says that's the funniest story I've ever heard. And I am not saying any names. Okay, Andrew, no names. This is on purpose. So that's but in terms of when things happened, I do have the report and I am calling that up now. A preview night sold out at 23 past. Saturday sold out at 37 past. Friday sold out about 5 minutes after that. So Saturday and Friday were pretty similar. Friday sold out at 43 past, Thursday at 10:01, and Sunday at 10:05. So
that's not as quick as I thought I'd been told. I was told it was less than an hour. So no, I mean, just over an hour. While it is quicker, it's not as dramatically quickly. I mean, we've had, I mean, last year's badge sale, I believe, sold out in an hour 10, hour 15.
I don't think we can really, since it's a waiting room process, I don't think you can say you can gauge anything by
No.
how long it's sold out. It is the fact that people are feeling more comfortable that they have time, so they don't have to race through it. I think that that's the only thing you can say about the speed that it's sold out.
Okay. So, I like I say, we're looking for any comments on the Q&A, any horror stories, any success stories. How did you do? Do let us know, and we'll jump in on those as we go through the rest of the show. We're not seeming to be getting our report from Paul. I will try again. And we'll see if we can get him. But
and while you do that, I'm going to answer Michael P's question. That is the $1 million question. We want to know how many actual badges were sold. We would love to know that number. If you find that number out, you let us know. To my knowledge, the guesstimation of 130 sold was based on the capacity of the San Diego Convention Center, and I believe the capacity is in the neighborhood of 160,000 to 150,000. So figuring that there's 20 or 30,000 people in support, what with vendors and all of that, that about 130,000 people badges were sold. Now that doesn't factor in how many people leave the convention center are in town. So they may oversell, figuring that people are going to be out and about a little bit. So who knows? We don't know. That's the $1 million question. If you can get that out of CCI, go for it, Michael.
We've got a couple of comments coming in. Andrew Dickinson, I much prefer WonderCon ticket sale. Yes, having it all on one site, having it as part of your member ID page, that sounds fantastic. But considering that one of the issues that we saw leading up to the badge sale yesterday, that we saw the member ID pages crashing, freezing at first, but then the full member ID system just completely locked up. I don't think that we're going to be seeing the Comic-Con badge sale being operated on the member ID or on the CCI server anytime soon. So yeah. Also, Sarita P, I saw some posts that people got in and all the badges were sold out already. That's one of the other ones as well. I know that people have been doing screen caps and sending emails in. I want to see what the reaction has been from CCI on that one first before I make any comments about that. Right, like I say, we've been trying to message Paul to join us, but it looks like he's not going to be joining us. So it is more or less a case of the reaction from social media about Ace Universe or Ace Comic-Con, another event that may be going back to Ace Universe at some point. This is Gareb Seamus's event. This is one of the old guards of the Comic-Con business. One of the founders of Wizard Entertainment, the organization that operates Wizard World. He's now moved on with his brother Stephen Seamus to form this. Ace Universe. It's the first event, and I've been doing my best to kind of keep an eye on what reactions have been coming in. All I did get as reactions, however, was that certainly for VIP packages, it was a complete disaster.
On Friday.
You had this is certainly on Friday, and
right.
To some degree, I understand that yesterday as well. Waiting in line 2 extra hours for photo ops to be rushed out as soon as you step foot in the tent, from Claudine on Twitter. Pictures were being shown of the VIP line, and remember, this is in a rather cold time of the year, everyone freezing nicely. The VIP lines were there lining up to get inside the building, and a nice empty space where standard attendees were already in the building. It was ridiculous. Andrew Dickinson, a comment, worst. I never got my VIP waited online for hours. I missed my panels. Now Ace is deleting all negative comments off Facebook. Wasn't this what they did before with Wizard World? Haven't they learnt from their basic lessons? I'm baffled by just, I mean, if you have issues, admittedly, this is your first con. It's starting again. You learn from the lessons that you had before, surely, and it's just, yeah, it's just ridiculous, the comments that I'm reading. In terms of the actual content, however, it has been an impressive show, especially if you are a DC and Warner Brothers fan. Gal Gadot, all the Justice League guys, of the television people involved. Sarita P, I have a friend that went to the general admission line to get her VIP because people were waiting hours to get in. Then, because of the fire marshal, didn't let people in there afterwards. Wow.
Yeah. I was talking with a person who attended on Saturday, and they actually sent me a bunch of pictures. Kevin, who's going to be doing a report on the Friends of CC blog, hopefully tomorrow also, in addition to Rob's report on CCI. The pictures he took were stark. In terms of not so much pictures of lines, but it was sparsely attended. There was not a lot of
empty. The floor, yeah.
I mean, it's like carpet. You could see like miles and miles of carpet. Apparently they had a lot of lines were in the seating area of the arena, because it is in an arena, and they had the talent signings up on like the mezzanine level, up a level. So you would wait. Thankfully, you would wait in chairs. You weren't stuck in some sitting on cement floors. But the fact of the matter is that it doesn't seem as though that it did financially well either. In addition to it. And Karen Session is saying there was snow also in Long Island on Saturday too.
Oh joy! Oh yes. Joy!
So it's you're certainly going to be hearing about it, and I think that this is a huge mistake for this convention to anyway associate itself with the Comic-Con brand in light of the recent court date. I think that they really have to separate themselves unless they want to risk having a problem down the road. I do want to quickly get back to a couple of questions that Knight Bodega asked in the Q&A. He had said a question about whether or not anything had happened with the expansion. We don't know anything yet. It hasn't. We're hopeful, but we haven't heard anything yet, any additions to that. And do you think CCI announcing early dates for the following year affected hotel prices right away? No. I think, to my understanding, all of the hotels know that as soon as that they don't open up their July dates until they know San Diego dates. They do not open up their July pricing, I should say, until they know the San Diego dates. It's just because they know that they can get triple the price for their hotel rooms, even if you are out in Mission Valley. So that's, maybe 10 years ago you could have, but not now. So I just wanted to touch those two quick things. Then anything else to add
in terms of the expansion, I think the convention center are just wanting to develop what they already have. Obviously you've got the tent being removed. I mean, Andrew Dickinson's talking about that on the Q&A. I believe that is it's either the replacement tent is now currently in place. It's near as damn it, I know that. But then, like I say, we're also talking about the infrastructure for the existing building as well. I know that they're also wanting to do a bit of work on the loading dock as well, certainly at the East End, because it gets very congested down that end with the way that they bring the trucks in. So they are wanting to, I think they're actually wanting to remove a wall and kind of build something out just to expand on the convention center.
Yeah, I mean, how they have to get in there does not look easy. Having dealt with a few loading docks in my life, and it doesn't look fun, especially for the larger things. For the smaller trucks, it's not really a matter. And I love the idea of a rooftop, a grass park rooftop. That's what I am in hope for.
That's years down the line. Years down the line.
I know, but it would be nice.
I know. Paul is saying that he's going into a photo shoot and will be available in about 10 minutes. Okay. I don't know if we can talk very quickly.
Well, we've got. Yes, we have Last Jedi.
What is this thing of which you speak?
I don't know. Yeah, speaking as one that doesn't have her ticket yet.
Oh, okay. I do have my ticket, and I think have I mentioned this before?
Just a little bit.
A little bit. Have I mentioned what time I'm going to go see it?
Midnight? Are you doing the midnight showing?
No.
Okay. When? No, I forget.
Basically, I am going to my usual screen, which is the Sheffield IMAX at Cineworld. And when the tickets went up on sale, they were selling a double feature, which would be Force Awakens straight into Last Jedi, which sold out pretty damn quickly. I was a little bit financially strapped at that point. I left it about 6 hours, and they were gone. However, at which point they were also posting. They were posting a Last Jedi screening on its own. And I thought, oh, right, okay, so maybe there's tickets for the double bill, and then there's just tickets for Last Jedi. So I hit go, and I hit my tickets for that. So myself and Caroline going for that screening. Times, however, what they're doing is they are doing the double screening, and then they're showing it again at 3:30 in the morning. And those are the tickets I bought.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So that's brutal.
Yes, brutally brilliant.
So yes, I will be. So let's put it this way: I will be doing my live stream. I'll be doing my Periscope, my spoiler-free opinion of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. But it will be done for the North American audience at a reasonable time, some point in the evening. For here in the UK. I don't think I'll be getting much audience.
That's right up there with typing in the wrong last name in the member ID field. Okay, that's
oh no, that's right up there with just saying Star Trek instead of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Am I Night Bodega? Am I dressing up as Star Wars gear for the movie? Well, I'll be probably going in a bathrobe because it's 3 o'clock in the morning. So who knows?
I could go as my Jyn Erso.
There you go.
Right in my small 3,000 person town, the movie theater, they won't know what to think of me showing up in my Jyn Erso costume.
Go for it.
And wonderful idea, Knight. Thank you very much.
Into the blue, Mr. Middle-aged man plus a warm, dark room plus late night snore.
Yes.
I understand how that could be tempting, but there's two things which I think will stop me. Number one, Sheffield will not be warm. It's gonna be bloody cold. I mean, I think we're going down to -2 here in the UK for the next couple of days. And also, from what I've been reading in terms of the spoiler-free reports from the LA red carpet and the LA premiere last night, I think there's going to be a lot to keep me awake. When I'm hearing stuff along the lines of, this is the best Star Wars movie ever.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, exactly.
Very cool.
I am so hyped for this thing. I really, really am. Leon D, hello everyone. Sorry to miss the show. I'm really sick. Got home from the emergency room. Yes, I know you've not been well. Best get well soon, Leanne.
Yes.
We want you fit as a fiddle, please.
I am personally hoping that Last Jedi has a little bit of the dark Rogue One feel about it. Just to kind of so it's not quite so episodes 1, 2, and 3. Yes.
I mean, the one that there was a comment that I saw, which someone was saying, okay, we've got a snow scene, we've got a young Jedi going to see a mentor, we've got 80 walkers. It's basically Empire Strikes Back. At which point someone's turned around and gone, no, wait till you've seen it. The two comments that have got me hyped. Number one, a reviewer that I put a lot of stock in turning around and saying that basically Rian Johnson has stepped up to the cliff and then just jumped off.
Nice.
Oh, I am down for that. So and he sticks the landing, so cool. And number two, apparently it has the best lightsaber sequence in any Star Wars film. Now listen, I know that the Phantom Menace has got its detractors, quite rightfully, but you can't knock the lightsaber stuff in Phantom Menace. If it tops that, I am down. I am down. So no, we will be doing a spoiler-free chat about Last Jedi on next week's show. And absolutely. I understand Mark Serby wants me to organize a spoiler-heavy chat at some point. Hopefully in the next 7 days, I'll be gathering the forces, no pun intended, to come together, and we'll, for people who have seen it this week, we will hopefully be doing a real spoiler-heavy chat about Star Wars.
I'm going to suggest that maybe we do it just after the spoiler-free show next week. Do it as a follow-up on Sunday.
Could be good. Okay, well, I'll have a word with Mark Serby about that, see if he's free.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I'd love to get his viewpoints on the spoiler-free version of it too. I always enjoy what he has to say. Highlights on the small screen for me last week. Oh my God! History of Comics, the Milestone Comics, Robert Kirkman's History of Comics last week, which was centered on DC's Milestone Comics with Levitz and all of the creators of the early 90s comic series. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. A must-see for anybody interested in diversity and comics. And some of the pitfalls that went through, absolutely just loved that episode. Have you had a chance to see it, Leonard?
No, I haven't. It's a case of trying to get hold of a copy at this point. To be honest, though, I have been catching up the best I can, and certainly the Superman episode was stunning. That was very impressive. But to me, the one that has blown me away so far has been the New York one, because it was like I wasn't too sure what it was going to do, whether it was going to be talking about the history of DC in New York, whether it was going to be about the industry in New York. It was, but it wasn't. It was about how 9/11 really impacted, and it was so well made. It was so well researched, and it was incredibly well done. It's been a very impressive series indeed.
Even for us people that know the field, we're learning so much, and it's bringing so much to the forefront. And some of these creators who've really pushed the boundaries, I can't get it. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's episode. I'm thinking that it's probably going to be on Image, and I mean, I don't see how you can have Robert Kirkman's History of Comics without having an Image.
From what I've been told, it's not. It kind of comes at it from a slightly different angle. Purely, I mean, not only that, purely because as I believe it was Sarita that shared us the Sci-Fi Wire web series, which, by the way, if you have not gone away and checked that out yet, it's brilliant. It's stunning. So that was really nice. So there's no need to kind of repeat it. Let's talk about some other stuff as well very quickly in terms of some previews that have come up. Just as we went live, of course, Ready Player One stuck up a trailer, so we'll be checking that out before at some point. However, I want to talk very quickly about a trailer that dropped yesterday. And this is for next year. This is for next Christmas. And frankly, it's looking like one film that has really got me excited. The new Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse trailer, which has Miles Morales bouncing around in a brilliant, the aesthetic of it. It looks amazing. I'm so hyped for that. It looked incredible. I'm really hoping that it's going to be represented at conventions next year. I am so down for that. It looked incredible. So yeah,
absolutely. The other small screen thing that I was really enthralled with was Happy. As you said, it certainly is not for young children. Absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely. But I love it. I absolutely love it. It was great acting, fun, light yet dark. You know, what more can you ask for? Highly recommended. I haven't. Somebody else was mentioning the Orville. I haven't caught up on the last 2 episodes of that. I'm sure that
I'm a good 4 episodes behind on that one.
Yeah, I'm sure that is on my must-do list. That is absolutely on there. I think are we in time for the gentleman? Is he?
I think we may have to pull the plug on that one, unfortunately. But let's have a look if there's anything else that if we haven't missed. Oh yeah, very quickly, something I did want to talk about, what we're going to be getting up to over the course of the Christmas period, and what we're going to be doing with the show. Well, obviously everything falls on Sunday, as per bloody usual. So yeah, this is the year when it all just kind of happens. So what we are going to be doing, a show next week. We are going to be talking about Star Wars The Last Jedi, but we are going to be doing our kind of wrapping up of 2017. We're going to be talking about the highlights, the low points. We're talking about moving forward, how the show is going to be improving for next year. But it looks like next week may be the last one of this year, unless Alyssa follows through with her threat to do a show on her own. Because obviously we've got Sundays falling on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. I will be busy. Simple as.
So you're not going to be around on the 17th?
I'm going to be working.
All day on the 17th.
No, 17th. Next week. Oh, no,
okay.
No, next week.
Okay, so we will have a show next week. Yes. The question, I may be available to do a show on the 24th. It depends on whether or not we can find somebody who is interested in coming on and talking with me.
This is where I'm now going to put a open shout out. Do you remember the days when we used to have 8 or 9 people as special guests on this show?
Oh my God! Are you going to ask me to manage that?
Yep, I'm going to turn around and say to the people on the Q&A, right now, if you want to take part, let's have our audience take part in the show. Do you want to take part in the last one of the year? Is this going to be on Christmas Eve?
This would be on Christmas Eve.
Okay. All right.
Oh, sure. It sounds like fun. It sounds like
I want to see Super Cat Chick. I want to see Angela Copley. I want to see Andy Bayback. I want to see Andrew Dickinson. I want to see Karen Session. I want to see a huge long line of people.
I don't know how we're going to do this. Yes, but I think that would be. We'll talk about it next week, and people who are interested can PM me, and we'll start the process. Yeah. Because I'm up for it. I may just kind of hang back and let everybody else talk, and that's fine with me.
That, ladies and gentlemen, was the sound of me throwing Alyssa under the bus.
Yeah, totally, because that was out of the blue. So I am going to go into, now I'm going to throw Leonard out of the bus and completely wreck our schedule. Next week in television, oh my God, we are talking season ending finales. To start with, we've got The Walking Dead happening tonight. Which also encompasses Talking Dead and Comic Book Men. They all end. Outlander ends for its season finale too. We have a premiere of, tonight is the Adult Swim premiere of Robot Chicken, Freshly Baked, the Robot Chicken Santa Claus plot, which a cookie freakout special, which I definitely have set to record. We also see season finales for Gifted, Secret History of Comics, which we've already mentioned, Riverdale, Designated Survivor, Mr. Robot, I believe ends its 3rd season on Wednesday. And we've got a couple of interesting shows. Once Upon a Time ends, as does Exorcist. Dirk Gently ends. So we've got a few of them. The new shows that are coming up is we've got a Netflix special called Erased, which is kind of a Japanese anime thing, which looks pretty good. It's about a time traveling who has the ability, a teenager that has the ability to time travel. That's dropping on Friday, as is Jean-Claude Van Johnson complete 1st season, which is Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yes, that one.
That is. Can I just say that is a brilliant concept. That is. I'm so. It is such a fun idea.
Yeah. So what would happen if he was actually a secret agent? Yes, that entire film career, his entire film career was built solely around the fact that he was a secret, that he was his black ops secret agent. Would you believe me? No, but that's what the film is about. So it's a complete 1st season. I'm not sure how many episodes we'll get of that. We do get a return to The Librarians this season on TNT, and I think that is primarily it. So there's a few little gems happening out there, but Troll Hunters comes back too for season 2. For those of you who liked that season, that's gotten fairly good reviews too. If you're looking for something to watch on Netflix over the Christmas holidays because the family is driving you crazy.
Well, there's something that you haven't put on the script, which I actually was very surprised, because I thought they would have done that this week. This is the release of Black Mirror. I thought they would have dropped that this week, get it out of the way, because next week it's going to be all about Star Wars. So I thought that was I thought that would have gone this week. If it drops next week, the window of opportunity days is starting to shrink, considering that you've got on the week after, on the 22nd, you've got Bright coming out. So I'm just, the stuff which I don't get, the timing's not right. So I'm hoping, please, that they release Black Mirror sooner rather than later. If they release it in that week between Christmas and New Year,
well,
possible.
The quick Google search that I just did says that season 4 will premiere on December 29th.
Oh,
so
okay. When did you find that? Okay, never mind. I'll have a look round.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just Googled it. That's all.
Okay.
Don't make mystery.
I had no idea that had been announced, but okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Andrew Dickinson has also pointed out another trailer that dropped this weekend, the Alta Battle Angel, which is based on a classic manga, which I'm a massive fan of, and he says it looks gorgeous. I know that opinion has been divisive. Certainly when it comes to the look of the lead robot with the big anime eyes, very unnerving. But I had no problem with it. I think it looks good. I think it's it's James Cameron. You don't bet against that guy. He may say some silly things sometimes, but you don't bet against the guy that said that I'm going to spend 180 million on a Titanic film, which I thought was going to tank horribly. I'm going to spend 220 million on a film with some blue aliens on it. I thought that was going to tank. You don't bet against James Cameron. It's simple as that. So no, I'm up for it. Not only that, but it's Robert Rodriguez as well. So I mean, the man knows how to make a film. Okay, and I think that's pretty much us. Is that it?
That's it for me.
Excellent stuff. So thank you very much indeed for watching. Slightly longer show, but a lot to cram in, and I really enjoyed our chat about the legal case. I'm glad that everyone's really gotten into the rest of the conversations as well. Thank you so much for everyone who has taken part in the Q&As. So, Alyssa, where can people find you online?
And people can find me on my Twitter feed, and you can use this if you want to contact me versus about the Christmas Eve show that we're talking about. The inmates run the asylum, I think is the term.
There's your name. That's the name for it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on my Twitter feed, which is @FriendsOfCCI. And you can always PM me on the forum. Alyssa is my username, and it's at friendsofcc.com.
Excellent. And for myself, of course, you can find me on most of the social medias at Englishman SDCC. And of course, you can keep up to date with what we get up to on the site on Englishman and EnglishmanInSanDiego.com. And as always, we really do appreciate everyone who supports the Hangout and all of our efforts by supporting our Patreon. Yes, I am going to be doing a little bit more research into finding out how we are going to be affected and how the people who support the Patreon are affected as well. I'm going to be posting on the Patreon page about that the next couple of days. Of course, if you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/EnglishmanSDCC. Thank you very much indeed, and enjoy the rest of your week. It'll be the last one for myself next Sunday as we talk Star Wars: The Last Jedi next Sunday. Hopefully we'll be having Mark Serby joining us as well. That should be a fun show. Take care, enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you soon.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.